ever go to
Another war?
another war?
Yeah, no, that was it. See, when you're drafted, you only have to do 2 years. Now, if you join, then you've got to go 3, maybe 4, sometimes 6 years. And for me, getting drafted was just fine because 2 years was good. I came in, I did my duty, and I got out. And it was only 2 years that I was in the Army. Actually, a little bit less than that because if you came home and you only had a few months left, then they would let you out. So that was nice. And I came home and surprised my mother because my mother didn't know I was in Vietnam because she was so against the war because my best friend that I grew up with was killed and he was only there 3 weeks. So that's the reason I actually volunteered to be drafted. I was in college. I probably could have stayed out for a while longer. But she said, if you go over there, I will do something, who knows. So I didn't want to find that out. So luckily, when you write back and forth, it's called APO San Francisco, Army Post Office. So I told her I was in Korea, which was a different country that wasn't at war. And even though it was wintry there, and it would be real hot where I was in South Vietnam, it's real tropical hot there, I would write to her and tell her it's snowing, it's cold, and she'd write back, sorry, you're so cold, and blah, blah, blah. But she didn't find out until much later where I'd gone and where I'd served. And she was okay with it after, I came home. And she was real proud of me, but I couldn't take a chance. I didn't know. She was pretty, against the whole war and everything because what happened to my best friend.
And his mother was living in the place where we live right now.
So, where did you live?
Okay, I lived in the Detroit area. Another good question. In a suburb of Detroit called Dearborn. That's where they make Ford cars. And I grew up in the Detroit area. And that's where I was drafted from, and that's where I went home to. And after the war, it was 10 years later that I came out to Colorado. I got out when I was 23, and I came here when I was 33.
How old were you when you entered the war?
Very good. I was 21 when I first went in, but then you go through training. You go through basic training, and they teach you how to shoot and how to, all the Army stuff, how to use a radio and everything else. And then you go to 8 more weeks of advanced training, which I learned about what my job was going to be, which was artillery. And then you get a month off of leave, and then they send you over for a year. So it was about 5 or 6 months after I went in 1968 that I didn't actually go in till, after that to get sent across in April of 1969.
Did you have a little brother or?
No, I didn't. And the thing was, they had a rule that only one of your kids could go to Vietnam. So I was serving with a lot of guys who volunteered to go in so that their brothers, who might have been, they can draft them into the service, but they could not send them into a war zone. So only one boy from the family could go into the war zone. And a lot of these guys were saying, I'm here because I don't want any of my brothers to have to do the same thing I'm doing. So
were there any girls in the war?
That's a good question. There were some in the rear areas. There was nurses, and then there was some volunteers to help out at the hospitals. And these were really, wonderful people to come over there and try to help out the wounded and try to help out the guys that were, when you're wounded, they take you out in a helicopter here, and then they take you to a hospital where they try to save your life, and then they move you to a bigger hospital if they're able to help you and save you. And there you see a lot of, you see nurses everywhere, where the hospitals were, and the volunteers, the girls that would try to help out, and they try to cheer you up, and if you smoke, they'd bring you cigarettes or chocolates or something to drink, and they were just really nice.
where were their hospitals? Were they far or were they close?
There was very, very good question. The field hospital was where somebody was choppered in off the battlefield to try to do as much as they could for the guy. You know, they got shot or wounded. And then after they stabilized him and they got him cleaned up and everything, if he was really bad, they would take him to a big hospital in the rear area, and then they'd fly him home to another hospital back home if he was, you know, really like if he lost an arm or a leg or something. And then he wasn't going back in the war after, you know, being wounded like that.
So, thanks for defending our country and coming to our house and helping me on my project.
Thank you. And what good questions that you thought of.
Thanks.
Those are excellent questions, man. Thank you, too.